The Israel-Palestine conflict stands as one of the world's most enduring and complex geopolitical struggles. Located in a small strip of land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, this conflict has deep historical roots stretching back millennia, with religious, territorial, and identity claims that have made resolution particularly challenging. Today, I want to walk you through the history of this conflict to help you better understand its complexity and why peace has been so elusive. To truly understand the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we need to go back thousands of years. The land that is now Israel and Palestine has been continuously inhabited for millennia and has changed hands numerous times throughout history. Around 1000 BCE, the Kingdom of Israel was established in this region, with Jerusalem as its capital under King David. His son Solomon built the first temple, which became the center of Jewish religious life. However, the Jewish people's sovereignty over this land was interrupted repeatedly by conquests. The Babylonians destroyed the first temple in 586 BCE, and many Jews were exiled, though they later returned and built a second temple. This too was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE following a Jewish revolt. After crushing another Jewish uprising in 135 CE, the Romans renamed the region Palestine after the Philistines in an effort to erase Jewish connection to the land. Throughout the following centuries, the region came under various rulers: Byzantine, Arab, Crusader, Mamluk, and finally Ottoman control from 1517 to 1917. During this time, while many Jews were scattered throughout the world, in what became known as the diaspora, a continuous Jewish presence remained in the land. Meanwhile, the Arab and Muslim population grew significantly, especially following the Muslim conquest in the 7th century. By the late 19th century, a crucial development occurred that would fundamentally reshape the region. In 1897, Theodor Herzl founded the Zionist movement, which advocated for the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. This movement gained momentum as Jews faced increasing persecution in Europe, particularly in Russia, where pogroms were driving Jews to seek safety elsewhere. The first significant wave of Jewish immigration to Ottoman Palestine began around this time. Then came World War I, which dramatically altered the political landscape of the Middle East. The Ottoman Empire, which had ruled the region for 4 centuries, sided with Germany and was defeated. The victorious British took control of Palestine in 1917. That same year, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, expressing support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, while also stating that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. This dual commitment to both Jewish and Arab aspirations would prove impossible to fulfill. Between the world wars, Jewish immigration increased substantially, especially as the Nazi persecution of Jews intensified in Europe. By 1939, the Jewish population in Palestine had risen to about 30% of the total, up from around 10% in 1917. The Arab population viewed this influx with alarm, seeing it as a threat to their demographic majority and their own national aspirations. Arab resistance to Jewish immigration intensified during the 1920s and 1930s, resulting in riots and rebellions. The British tried to appease both sides but ultimately satisfied neither. As violence escalated, the British began limiting Jewish immigration precisely when Jews were desperately trying to escape Holocaust-era Europe, a policy that remains deeply controversial to this day. After World War II, with Europe's surviving Jews seeking refuge in the Holocaust demonstrating the dire consequences of Jewish statelessness, the pressure for a Jewish state intensified. In 1947, the United Nations proposed partitioning Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish, one Arab, with Jerusalem under international control. The Jewish leadership accepted this plan, while Arab leaders rejected it, believing it unfairly gave away land that rightfully belonged to the Palestinian Arab majority. On May 14, 1948, as the British mandate came to an end, Jewish leaders declared the establishment of the State of Israel. The very next day, armies from 5 Arab nations, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, invaded, beginning what Israelis call the War of Independence and Palestinians call al-Nakba, the catastrophe. When the fighting ended in 1949, Israel controlled more territory than the UN partition plan had allocated. Jordan took control of the West Bank and East Jerusalem, while Egypt occupied the Gaza Strip. Crucially, approximately 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes in what became Israel. These refugees and their descendants, now numbering in the millions, remain a central issue in the conflict today. The next major escalation came in 1967 with the Six-Day War. Amid rising tensions, Israel launched preemptive strikes against Egypt, followed by Jordan and Syria. In just 6 days, Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula and Gaza from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. This tripled the territory under Israeli control and placed over 1 million Palestinians under Israeli military occupation. The 1967 war fundamentally transformed the conflict. Israel annexed East Jerusalem and began establishing settlements in the occupied territories, which the international community considers illegal under international law. Israel returned the Sinai to Egypt after the 1979 peace treaty, but has maintained control over the other territories. The Palestinian National Movement, meanwhile, was gaining momentum. The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, founded in 1964, emerged as the Palestinif of the Palestinian people. Initially committed to armed struggle and the destruction of Israel, the PLO later moderated its position, eventually recognizing Israel's right to exist. In December 1987, Palestinian frustration with ongoing occupation erupted in the First Intifada, a largely popular uprising involving civil disobedience, strikes and demonstrations, though also including stone throwing and some armed attacks. This continued until 1993, when the Oslo Accords established the Palestinian Authority as an interim self-government for Palestinians in parts of the West Bank and Gaza. The Oslo process created hope that a permanent two-state solution might be achieved. However, this optimism was short-lived. A second, more violent intifada erupted in 2000 after failed peace talks and a controversial visit by Israeli politician Ariel Sharon to the Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif in Jerusalem. Suicide bombings and Israeli military operations claimed thousands of lives over the next 5 years. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew its settlers and soldiers from Gaza. The following year, Hamas, an Islamist group that refuses to recognize Israel, won Palestinian legislative elections and eventually took control of Gaza after a brief civil conflict with its rival Fatah, which controls the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Since then, Gaza has been under a strict Israeli and Egyptian blockade, with Israel controlling its airspace, territorial waters, and most border crossings. Israel justifies this as necessary for security, while critics call it collective punishment. Several rounds of intense fighting have occurred between Israel and Hamas, including major conflicts in 2008 to 2009, 2012, 2014, and 2021. In the West Bank, meanwhile, Israeli settlements have continued to expand, creating what many describe as a patchwork of disconnected Palestinian areas. Palestinians must navigate a complex system of checkpoints and permits to travel within and from the occupied territories, which Israel justifies as security measures, but Palestinians experience as daily humiliation. The peace process has stalled repeatedly. Various proposals have failed to bridge the gaps on key issues: the borders of a Palestinian state, the status of Jerusalem, which both sides claim as their capital, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the future of Israeli settlements. Recent years have seen significant developments that have further complicated prospects for peace. In 2017, the United States recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moved its embassy there, breaking with international consensus. In 2020, Israel signed normalization agreements with several Arab states, known as the Abraham Accords, bypassing the traditional Arab stance that normalization should come after resolution of the Palestinian issue. Meanwhile, Israeli politics has shifted rightward, with governments increasingly dependent on pro-settlement parties. On the Palestinian side, political division between Hamas in Gaza and Fatah in the West Bank has weakened their position, while the Palestinian Authority faces a legitimacy crisis due to the absence of elections since 2006. Tensions have continued to simmer and occasionally boil over. In May 2021, a planned eviction of Palestinian families in East Jerusalem's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, along with Israeli police actions at the Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan, triggered widespread protests. Hamas fired rockets into Israel, and Israel responded with airstrikes on Gaza in an 11-day conflict that killed over 250 Palestinians and 13 Israelis. The fundamental challenges remain unresolved. Israel seeks security and recognition as a Jewish state, while Palestinians demand self-determination, freedom from occupation, and justice for refugees. Both peoples claim deep historical and religious connections to the same land, and both have experienced profound trauma, Jews from centuries of persecution culminating in the Holocaust.